Hey, listen, I just want to call out one person.
It poses a greater global threat than terrorism.
And in April, supposedly it dies with the hotter weather.
Looks like by April, in theory, when it gets a little warmer, it miraculously goes away. I hope that's true.
More than 10,000 school closures nationwide.
Shops, cafes, restaurants, bars, all forced to close.
And rising fear, officially a global pandemic.
It's all over the world. It's incredible what's happened in such a short period of time. But I've always known this is a pandemic.
That's funny as hell.
Coronavirus.
Yeah.
It's taken over. It's crazy. Everyone's posting online about all the toilet paper being gone and everything else, which my wife was asking me the other day why people are taking toilet paper and, diapers and everything else. And there's two kind of reasons for that I can kind of derive from. One, people are kind of preparing for like quarantine if they need to quarantine themselves. Also, people are selfish shitbags and they want to it's a crisis. So they just grab whatever they think they need. And apparently toilet paper is somehow at the top of that fucking list.
Yeah. Despite the fact that most patients who get coronavirus don't have diarrhea as a symptom, it's a small percentage. So I don't really know.
Because it's a flu. You shit yourself when you have the flu sometimes. I mean, I don't have the flu, and every 3 days I have explosive diarrhea. It happens.
I mean, yes, but how many rolls do you need? I mean, it's not the end of the world.
No, like stock up like in soap and hand sanitizer. One thing I love that was floating through Facebook is there's no soap or hand sanitizer, but what were you all doing before the coronavirus? All you nasty people never washing your hands. Now you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like being in the medical world, and I'm sure you do too. I'm habitual about washing my hands.
Yeah, gotta be.
At home, not so much because I'm at home, and if I'm touching my balls, they're my balls. I don't care. But when I'm at work, I constantly wash my hands, and I also habitually touch my face, so I'm constantly using hand sanitizer.
Yeah, when I'm at work and I'm touching my balls, like I gotta make sure I wash my hands.
Yeah, I mean, preferably in private, but yeah, it's frowned upon from what I'm told.
Yeah.
But so many people have been freaking out about the coronavirus, and then there's that aspect of just explosiveness. And sadly, we posted something up on our page the other day of the March illness bracket. Since March Madness is canceled, we found one on that's been going through of all the states, the last state to get infected. And Idaho and West Virginia, I'm from Idaho, so Idaho and West Virginia were the top two until yesterday, and Idaho got its first case yesterday. So West Virginia is the March illness madness champion of 2020.
Well, it's nice that they're able to win something.
Yeah, they won something besides, their cousin in a duel or whatever West Virginians do. I don't honestly know too much. Make moonshine in the Appalachians, I think, is primarily what they learn how to do. But so it's just give us a rundown on since you are the science knowledge body on this interchange here. Give us kind of the rundown on the coronavirus, where it started from, and obviously the main symptoms, and just kind of should people be as concerned as the news is making it? For myself, I don't think they really should be, but I mean, there's certain people that should be. So you can kind of go from there.
Sure. Coronavirus is a type of virus, and I want to start off by saying it's not new, right? Coronaviruses have been around for a long time. There was an outbreak of a coronavirus, SARS, back in 2003. MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, is a type of coronavirus. And then even in the Midwest, a few years back, there was an outbreak of monkeypox, which is also a coronavirus. So actually, I might be wrong about that last one. But either way, coronaviruses aren't new. And roughly 20% of all common colds come from coronaviruses. So the idea that the coronavirus is going to kill us is not really accurate. This particular coronavirus is thought to have come from a food market in Wuhan, China. Coronaviruses come from animals, which is why the first epidemic was this food market, this animal market. We think it's from bats. They were, the primary source, and then usually for coronaviruses is an intermediate animal, so it jumps from animal A to B and then to humans. So we think the chain went from bats to an armadillo type animal called pangolins, and then into humans.
Does it come from eating the animal or just being around the animal?
It can come from being around, especially if you go spelunking. This is a real concern. Bat droppings can often cause disease because whatever's in there is like aerosolized. And so it might have been something like that, where someone just lives in an area where there's a lot of bats. Or it could have been a bat gave it to another animal and then someone consumed that animal. Or, oftentimes in Chinese and Eastern medicines, they use animals for medicinal purposes, whether it's like grinding up the scales or whatever they do. So it could have been consumed that way. Viruses are hard to treat. It's not like bacteria. You can't give antibiotics for it, and you can't even fight them off with your body's natural immune system the same way you do bacteria. When you get sick with a bacteria or anything, you get a fever. The fever is not caused by the bacteria. It's caused by your own body. And what it's doing is it's trying to break down the proteins that the bacteria creates. And it does this thing called denature, which means it like unfolds these proteins so they're not usable anymore. And at about 101 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, bacterial proteins start to malfunction. But viral proteins and human proteins need a little higher temperature. So the temperature needed to break down viral proteins is around the same temperature you need to break down human proteins. So that's where the problem comes in.
At about that 100, 405 area.
Yeah, and you have to basically cook it.
Yeah. And well, I mean, so viruses in 9% of the time, what people think is like they take Mucinex or whatever it may be. And like that treats the symptoms. That doesn't treat the actual illness. You're
Right.
treating the sniffles. And so when you do have the flu and doctors give you stuff, it's not to treat the virus. It's to treat the symptoms of it, because really all you can do is just give it time. Give it time for your body to fight it, and then it goes dormant and it dies.
So more severe viral infections like HIV or other things, they do have antivirals which attack either the proteins or DNA of the virus. But for something like a flu, you're going to get, Tylenol or Motrin or something that's, like you said, it's going to treat the symptoms to make you more comfortable, but it's not going to take care of the viral source. With this new coronavirus, that's all we can do. We don't have an effective antiviral. There's been some things that were being tested, some other medications that we have that are already approved. They're currently being tested for efficiency against treating coronavirus. I don't know where we stand with it. I haven't heard much about it, which leads me to believe that it's probably not very effective.
Well, I think I heard the other day, and this isn't substantiated. I didn't like look at the CDC page. I saw it through an article that Canada was starting test trials on a vaccine.
Yes. So I've seen that as well. The problem with that is when people see articles talking about Canada's going to be starting trials for a vaccine, it's not going to be ready anytime soon.
No, that takes a very long time to get through testing, and then they tweak it because maybe the virus is different, or they only have like one substrain of the virus and they have to go to another virus, right? Or another substrain of it. Like sometimes the same virus can be different between two different hosts, right?
The virus itself wouldn't be person to person. The virus is probably pretty similar. At least the part that you would attack with a vaccine or a drug would be something that would not change over time.
Okay.
Some parts of the virus will change because as it replicates, viruses and bacteria have high rates of mutations in their DNA. But the parts that make it an actual virus and gets us sick, those things don't change very much. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the same virus at all anymore. It'd be something totally different. So same thing with us, like the part of our genome that makes, red blood cells or whatever, those are all the same. It's what we call highly conserved, but in the, smaller things can be changed, which gives us our individuality.
Okay. So and the reason why, so people shouldn't really necessarily freak out about it unless they're in a certain area of health, right? So it's not really something that it spreads fast, but I think the mortality rate is what 2.4% or something like that.
Yeah, it's roughly. I mean, it's changing constantly as different people, different numbers of people get sick. So I'm a little hesitant to give a number because if you listen to it today versus in a week from now, that number is likely to be different. But it's roughly in that 3 to 4% range, which sounds small. But and I've seen this argument online a lot where people are like, it's only 3%. But at 3% of 80 million people who might be, who are, it's estimated that might get this is very large. So,
because it's not 3% of 8 billion, it's 3% of like your local populace.
yeah, 3% of the total number of people who get it.
Yeah.
So if only 1 million people get it, 3% isn't that much. When you talk in grand scheme of like national populations. But, if 80 million people wind up getting this disease, well, 3% of 80 million is a lot of people. So that's, while I agree, people should not be panicking, it is important to take necessary precautions, such as washing your hands and maybe avoiding large crowds at the moment. Not going to concerts and
those are
things
getting
like
all canceled anyway.
and people don't understand. Well, I mean, maybe they do understand, but they still use that argument. Like people are freaking out over nothing, and look how the media is controlling the country. But do you really think the NBA or the NHL or whatever want to cancel their games? Like they're losing tons of money. Other events and restaurants, like they're losing a lot of money on this. They're doing it out of, and you see this all the time, an abundance of caution, meaning they don't need to, but they're doing it to mitigate the chances of people getting infected, which is a good thing. So that's the easiest way to contain a viral infection is either to provide a vaccine for it, which we don't have. So plan B is to quarantine it and isolate it.
Yeah, to err on the side of caution is usually sometimes the best medicine when it comes to that.
Yes.
Prevention over treatment. And I've heard the same thing of, is it that bad? It's not that bad because it's spreading, but the people who are dying from it, which is a smaller percent, are people who are immunodeficient or immunocompromised, and people who would die whether it was a normal flu or the normal flu that we already get vaccines for, or if it's this one. What the reason for social distancing is, and I explained this to my wife and a few of the other patients that we had to come through, is we're doing it to protect those that can't. It's the same reason why you get vaccines in the first place. You're
Right,
doing it to
herd
protect
immunity.
those that can't. So, like myself, if I get the coronavirus, I'll probably be okay. My wife, she'll probably be okay. My 2-year-old daughter, she'll probably be all right too. My month-and-a-half-old newborn, it's a little up in the air with the coronavirus. Like they can have a higher temperature than I can, but it's still a little rough ground. So, of course, I want to keep distancing. We're not at a mall right now because of what's going on. My wife didn't go to a concert because of what's going on. So,
Yeah.
It is important to do the social distancing, and people are freaking out about, NBA canceled. Everything just canceled.
Yeah, and I do want to add that it's not just people who are immunocompromised or immunodeficient. Some of the biggest risk factors are people with respiratory illnesses, whether it's chronic shortness of breath, emphysema, COPD. Obesity is a risk factor, which is about I think it's like 40% of the U.S. population is marked as obese. and 66%, about 2/3 of the country, are overweight. So that's a risk factor. Hypertension, diabetes, which again are extremely common comorbidities, those are all risk factors for making this infection more severe. And someone like my dad, who's overweight, I mean, he's obese for his size. He has hypertension. He has diabetes. It's not very well controlled, despite my best efforts. I mean, if he gets it, it's going to be a severe case, despite the fact that immunity-wise, he's perfectly fine. So that's one of the, I don't want to say misconceptions, but one of the lesser known pieces of information is that these risk categories are more expansive than just immunocompromised or elderly, which are, like you mentioned, high risk categories as well.
Yeah, no, that is a factor that I forgot to mention. It's a respiratory virus. That's mainly what it affects, but then also with the fever, it can affect people with hypertension and everything else. Your body is tied together, and it's much like a well-oiled machine, as people say. And if you have all these other issues, like your lungs are fine, but you have heart issues, and diabetes would make sense as to why it would be difficult. And then you add a fever on top of that, a very high fever that is probably barely going to be touched by ibuprofen and Tylenol and stuff like that. And then add to those things, they're just going to increase and get worse. So social distancing is important, but to kind of freak out and treat it like it's, the next plague, I wouldn't say it's necessarily at that level.
Right. I mean, that's why I wanted to preface it and say I don't think people should be panicking. That's the worst thing to do. And, Twitter is trending with like panic buying and stuff as a hashtag. And I think part of the reason why people are panic buying is like they're scared. Or then you have the flip side, people like myself, where if I don't buy things now, well, then in a week or two, there won't be anything to buy because all the people who panicked bought it all.
Yeah, it's like second stage panic buying. So you have the people at the beginning that just don't give a shit because they're selfish.
Yeah.
And they're panicking at first. So they run and they buy everything. They have people like yourself and myself. I'm very much the same. Like we were talking earlier about, my wife can't find hand sanitizer anywhere. We tried finding it online, and I just wanted it because my kids touch everything, and then they touch their face when we're out. So I just want, put some on their hands when we get back to the car and stuff, and we can't find it anywhere. So people like us, we're like, it's fine, but you know what? Err on the side of caution. Let's get some stuff, and there's nothing.
Yeah,
there's not a damn thing.
Look at so on Friday, or I think it was Friday. Yeah, today's only Saturday. So on Friday, President Trump issued a national emergency. And I was just reading earlier today.
Did he actually list this as a national emergency? Because I know he did his address. So
yes, he said COVID-19 he's calling a national emergency as a result of COVID-19.
Okay.
And they put a travel ban on Europe, and that was recently expanded to include Ireland and the UK or Britain. And then they're even considering domestic travel restrictions. So, I mean, it's a concern, and I see the reason why people are going out and buying stuff, but it's like if you don't get it now or you don't go where you have to go now, then you might have trouble doing it later.
Well, I even saw one thing like someone was trying to explain the toilet paper aspect of it all, and they were like, "Oh, well, most of our toilet paper comes from China, so that's why they're freaking out." Well, according to research, this virus does not survive very long on things. On surfaces, it's not. So it survives longer on cardboard, I believe, than hard surfaces, but still, it's not the distance. Even if our toilet paper was created in China, which I don't think most of it is. Even if it was, or anything that you're getting from over in China, it's not going to survive that trip. Most of the stuff they ship is by ship. So it's going to die by the time it gets to you. And even if you get it express shipped through Amazon, it's going to die in a few days. It's not going to survive that long.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the supply chain and how we receive goods and everything.
I'm not a trade doctor, so I don't know how that works.
But I will say fibrous material like cardboard and other things, and money being one. Um, Viruses and bacteria do live longer on those than they do on hard surfaces, especially metallic surfaces. Viruses and bacteria cannot live very long on metal. So
That's why most of the operating rooms and everything that we have in the hospital is some sort of stainless steel.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, it's harder for it to survive there.
And
So
it's also easy to
clean.
autoclave and sanitize or fully decontaminate because you can heat it up really high and nothing's going to happen to it.
Yeah, people, if you're watching this, take caution, but don't freak out too much about it. It's just do common sense things that you should have been doing beforehand.
Yeah,
right?
hand washing.
Yeah, hey, wash your hands, sneeze into your elbow, And then I pointed out to someone the other day that, and I saw it on Trevor and Noah, and they pointed it out too, that people are like shaking elbows now.
Which even that you don't really want to do.
Well, yeah, because think about it. So if you cough into your hand or into your elbow, and then you touch elbows, that's how you just don't touch people. Like I have turned down handshakes this past week just because I'm erring on the side of caution. I meet patients or someone that I work with and like, oh hey, and I'm like, no,
yeah,
it's not gonna happen. Like don't touch me right now. Or I had a private who got in an elevator the other day and he coughed on purpose to freak out everyone in the elevator.
Look at the guy, I don't remember his name, the NBA player, who thought it would be funny to like touch every microphone and recorder for the press. And then the next day he came out that he had coronavirus. And it's like, wow, what an asshole.
Yeah, like I get it. You're funny. Guess what? Now those people have to go get tested because you touched their shit.
Yeah, you thought you were being funny, but in actuality, it was just a huge dick move.
Yeah, like it's not a big deal, but you also don't know what symptoms someone else is having. So, someone like myself who seems generally healthy, I could have some sort of, heart condition or, I've been a smoker for the past 6 years. So who knows if this is going to hit me hard or not?
Yeah, like congestive heart failure and things that you can't see, like Addison's disease. Where people make too little stress hormone called cortisol. If they get sick and they have like a severe infection, they can go in what's called Addison's crisis, and it can be life-threatening. And you don't know if somebody has something like Addison's disease or if they're, B cell deficient, which is the type of immune cell. You have no idea on visual inspection. So,
or if that person is actually completely healthy, but they have someone at home who's not.
Right.
I heard about the NBA guy, like, being, what was it? He's like the top defender of this year because he shut down the entire NBA.
That's fucking good. That's funny.
He's the best defender because he just shut down the whole NBA. I think it was pretty good. I mean, so overall, the count from what I'm looking at is 155,829 for the entire world. There's been 5,800 deaths. And here's the important number, 74,438 have recovered. So no one mentions that number. This is the first time that I've ever read it. And of course, this is just one source that I'm looking at, worldometer.info. So they have a lot of different numbers per different topics. But 74,000 recovered. That's an important number that only 5,000 have died so far worldwide, and out of 155,000, 74,000 of it they're fine now.
Right, about half.
Yeah, that's pretty good, and I think so. The most cases, of course, is in China, and then Italy, Iran, South Korea, and Spain, and then USA is actually like 10th down the list with 2,500 cases.
So,
and 55 deaths.
The reason why people are freaking out in the U.S., at least to my understanding and my interpretation, is if you looked at, so this is day 15 of us having the coronavirus in the country, and we have like roughly 550 cases or something, or something around there. Italy had 380 some odd cases at their day 15. Now they're on day 25 and they're up in the thousands. And people are looking at the rate or the scale of infection as this kind of exponential curve, and they're modeling what's going to happen in the US based on what's happening in Italy because our numbers and populations are similar enough where we can do it. And it's not looking good. Even the director of the National Institute for Allergy and National Infectious Disease, we try that again, director for National, wow, this is hard for me to say for some reason. Allergies and Infectious Disease. He's the director for that institute for the goddamn country. And he was saying, like, look, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And they're expecting this to go on for maybe as long as 8 weeks. And they talk about something called R naught, which is like R with a 0 as a sub number. So that's the time it takes to replicate. That's how long it takes the virus to replicate. And we think it's somewhere in the range of 2 days. And it sounds like a long time. But when you start having numbers in the 3,000s or 4,000s, well, now 2 days later, those number of cases can be 8,000. And 2 days later is now 16, 20, 32. And those numbers jump, they do jump exponentially. And you can, if you look at a data curve for the number of cases over the past 25 days or 30 days for Italy, you see this steep increase. It is scary.
Isn't the incubation period, or is that what you were talking about? I thought I read that the incubation period was 14 days.
So that's how
like in between that 14 days, like before you start getting symptoms, you can still be infectious. Like you can still get other people infected within that 14 days of incubation of symptoms.
Yes. So that incubation period is different from R naught. That's just how long it takes for the virus to start showing symptoms in an individual. Because that refers to what's called viral load, which means the amount of viral cell, not really cells, but viral protein in your body. When you first get infected with something, the viral load, the number of viral components in your body is probably low, and it takes time for that number to increase and replicate.
Mm-hmm.
But while that's happening, you can still be infecting other people. And
that's where the incubation period.
So the incubation period is the time it takes for you as an individual to have enough virus in your body to start showing symptoms. Mm-hmm. But the R naught is the amount of time it takes for the virus itself to replicate.
Okay, so it takes about 2 days for it to replicate,
right,
in a body, and then it can go from there.
So let's say you got sick today. In 4 to 12 days or so, that's how long it takes for symptoms to show in you, because you need a certain threshold of viruses in your system. But those viruses are replicating every 2 days. That's why the incubation period is so long, because it takes a while for the virus to replicate.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's just people just don't be fucking dumb. Just wash your hands, hand sanitizer, keep those that are at risk safe, do precautions. When you get home, wash your hands, wash your car down, because you might be washing your hands now, but if you don't wipe your car down, like we were saying, it takes 14 days. So you could already have it and not know. Yeah. So you need to take the precautions of washing your hands, because even if you're at home doesn't mean that, you couldn't be passing it on. Yeah. And so it's important to just use common sense, and don't freak out. If you just keep in your mind, don't freak out, then everything you see on the news of people freaking out will keep it, mellow.
Yeah, and I know I'm saying some things that make it sound like it's going to be this really severe thing, but as we mentioned before, the average person who comes in contact with the virus will be fine. And I don't think there's a big reason to panic. As we've been saying, erring on the side of caution is the safer bet. Social isolation, washing your hands. I put a video on our Twitter demonstrating how to properly wash your hands. And I did that because most people don't know how to wash their hands. In fact, there was a study that was done that was showing you know those hand dryers, like the automatic hand dryers in bathrooms and stuff?
Yeah.
Those are so unsanitary, and they actually are way dirtier than using paper towels because people don't wash their hands properly, and then they go to these machines that have blowout hot air, and it actually causes about 24 times the amount of pathogens to be in the air, and they can circulate in the bathroom for up to 15 minutes. So imagine someone comes out of the bathroom, and then you go in, even if you go in 10 minutes later, if they didn't wash their hands properly, you can still be exposed to bacteria and viruses from them not, washing their hands and using the hand dryer.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know, what goes into washing your hands. When I was in processing, our infectious safety people, they meet with every group of people that are in processing the hospital, and they go through classes of the different viruses and stuff like that you should watch out for and how to wash your hands and stuff like that. And they picked me as the guinea pig to show how to wash your hands properly. So they took that germ cream that they put on. If you've ever been through an infectious class, they do it. And they're going to show you like UV light and show how dirty your hands are, right? And they put it on my hands, showed the UV, and my hands lit up like a Jackson Pollock painting. It was ridiculous. And so then they're like, go to the bathroom and wash your hands. Well, this ain't my first rodeo. I know how to fucking wash my hands. So I'm washing my hands, but the problem is my uniform goes to my wrist. So I'm washing my hands, do the full thing, boom, good, go back in. And the lady did the light on my hands, and she was like, wow, I'm actually really impressed. My hands were perfect, except for the ring around my wrist where it was, because I didn't get up here. So even in some, like myself, I habitual wash my hands. I've worked in sterile areas and done procedures where I have to be clean, and I've had to be as clean as possible while out in the dirt of a field doing procedures. So yeah, I'm good at this, but even at that level, like, you forget what you need to do, and it's just simple as doing that, and then using hand sanitizer is very important.
Yeah, hand sanitizer. 60% alcohol is what you're looking for.
So just vodka. Just wash your hands, Everclear.
Yeah, I mean, that'll probably do. I mean, it'll dry your hands out like fucking no tomorrow. But you can make your own homemade hand sanitizer if you had 60% rubbing alcohol, and then you can buy like tea tree oil and a little like aloe vera and stuff like that, and you basically make your own. But that's only a stall. It's only until you get the opportunity to wash your hands. So like you're out of the store and you see a hand sanitizer dispenser, you use it just for the interim. And then when you get home or you get to a bathroom, then you wash your hands. It's not, I'm going to stock up on hand sanitizer so I can be good and never have to wash my hands. I don't have to worry. That is not the case.
No, it's an in the middle kind of thing.
Yes.
Like I will wash my hands and then like try not to like touch the doorknob, obviously, because that's fucking counter to like pooping, wiping your ass, and then just pooping again. Like, you don't want to wash your hands and then touch the sink or touch the handle. It defeats the purpose. But I'll wash my hands and then go, and I will use hand sanitizer on top of that to make sure I'm good. Like,
Yeah,
just kind of cover those last little bits. I got it. So, we can't just beat a dead horse. I mean, over and over again. Just don't be fucking dumb, people.
It's hard, but please try.
I preach that a lot. So, real quick, I'm just going to scroll through myths. Keep your mouth moist and drink a lot of water to prevent infection. That doesn't even make science. No, like that makes no sense. Keeping your mouth moist, or also on top of that, drink water often to flush the virus into your stomach where acid will kill it. That's not how viruses work.
No, and at least not this one, right? If it's in your esophagus, you will, you're going to swallow it and it's going to go into your stomach. When you drink water, it's not flushing out your trachea, which is your airway, right? Yeah. So that leads from your mouth to your lungs, but then there's another tube behind it called the esophagus, which is when you swallow food, it goes down a totally different pathway separate from the pathway going to your lungs. So the idea of drinking water to flush something out of your esophagus or throat doesn't work. It might get something out of your mouth into your stomach, maybe, but honestly, if it's in your mouth, it's probably also in your nose. So,
Well, I mean, so it's just like it travels and doesn't mean that's going to wash it all the way down. If it's in your mouth, even if it was just, for sake of argument, going straight to your esophagus, wasn't in your trachea, doesn't mean that it doesn't get left behind, or or that it can't survive through your stomach. There's stomach flus and all sorts of different stuff. So
so,
I mean,
so I gotta jump in. The idea of a stomach flu, technically, medically doesn't exist. It's just what we call a stomach, like when you get a stomach bug, but it's a totally different infection than the actual flu.
see,
Flu is
there's
called,
evidence of one of those things of thinking something, and then like you hear it through the years, heard it
yeah,
through the
yes,
years, and then like, okay, that's a thing.
yeah,
But
it's a totally different infection, usually bacterial in nature, which is causing a stomach virus. It can be stomach virus or it could be bacterial. But
okay,
the flu is caused by influenza, which takes residence in your lungs or in your upper respiratory,
yeah.
which is why you get the symptoms of coughing, runny nose, things like that, sneezing. For colds and flu, you can have, like I said, fever. Um, the different viruses need different environments to live. So stomach flu is a little bit of a misnomer. It's just something that people call it because people tend to get it during flu season.
hmm yeah, it's just the different things. Like viruses are very different, and bacteria is very different. Holding your breath while coughing means no infection. That's the
What?
thing that's been going around. It's been going around to like test yourself.
Holding your breath while coughing?
No, holding your breath without coughing means you have no infection. So if you can hold your breath for 10 seconds, it means that you don't have an infection because you don't have fibrosis in your lungs. Is
Oh,
what
and
it's saying, but that's not technically how it works, and it's not going to manifest in that way.
I think they're also one of the big symptoms for coronavirus is shortness of breath. And I
Yeah,
think
and that
they
goes
are
for 10 seconds.
trying to see if you can hold your breath for 10, 15 seconds, and clearly you're not short of breath. But that's, again, it doesn't mean that you are infected. It just means at this moment, you are not showing that particular symptom.
Yeah, and so the coughing with the holding your breath, like when you hold your breath, you shouldn't cough if you hold it for 10 seconds. Like that's not gonna happen necessarily. The reason why you would gasp or start panicking when you're holding your breath is because you don't have oxygen. So even if you're short of breath, doesn't mean that you still can't get adequate amount of oxygen in your body. So just if you hold your breath but you're short of breath and you still have enough oxygen in your body, you're not hypoxic, then you're still going to be fine. You're not going to start panicking after 10 seconds.
Yeah, one of the things with holding your breath is actually not even so much the lack of oxygen, but it's the buildup of carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide causes a shift in pH locally in your lungs. And that shift drives a whole other set of downstream mechanisms that force you basically to breathe. Um, so yeah, I don't really think that's a great test. I mean, if you are trying to discern whether do I have a regular flu or coronavirus, maybe testing for shortness of breath by yourself, holding your breath, something like that might not be the worst thing, but I wouldn't put much stake in it.
The best way to find out is you going to a doctor.
And get tested,
So,
yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
go to a doctor and get tested. Like, and then that's another thing. Like, someone asked me, they're like, so they're shutting places down, and they're even like at the VA here. They're screening people at the gate to get in the VA, and if you're presenting symptoms, they turn you around, which kind of seems like a defeat of purpose because you go to the VA to get treated. So, like, why would you? So it's kind of like weird. So people are asking, what should I do if I, experience symptoms? Do I just quarantine myself? Well, no, because you don't know if you may be at risk. So, and that brings me to the other one, like wearing the mask will
Yeah.
will keep you from getting infected. Will it keep you from getting infected? No, because if someone's not wearing a mask, it's not going to cut down the droplets that are in the air. It's not that kind of mask. You need an N95 mask, which we spoke of earlier. which is a high particulate mask. And even then, at certain points, it's not going to cut it all there. It's an extra step of prevention. Like, it gives you a higher chance. But if you are sick and you're afraid of getting other people sick, like you do need to go get checked, put on a surgical mask. It'll help you from throwing it out everywhere else because it's going to get stopped.
There was actually a research study done a while ago that showed wearing a mask versus not wearing a mask does not keep people from getting sick. So if you are sick, you should wear a mask. But if you are not sick, wearing a mask has no better chance of protecting you than not wearing one.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we want to really make sure that we are reserving masks, especially N95s, for healthcare workers. So unless you're showing symptoms, you should not be buying masks.
Yeah. And one of my other favorite ones, so like lightning round, vitamin C and other supplements can boost your immune system and combat coronavirus. No. Like it can, but it's not going to like really help it. But another one that I really love is this will go away by like April-ish. You know, it can't survive the heat. And that was pushed out by our White House, by a certain individual and their vice president who is in charge of the coronavirus treatment. Because if you can't pray gay away, put him in charge of a virus. That is how this works.
100%.
Yeah, right? So they were saying that by summertime it'll go away because that's how not really. How many of you have gotten sick in the summer? Like every summer I get sick. I get like a major case of the flu.
I got sick. It was on Easter. I woke up and I was deathly ill like 2 years ago. It happens. There is some people have been saying that where people think that flu viruses only exist in the winter. They exist all year round, but because everybody's indoors all the time in the winter because it's cold, then you don't. You're more likely to be exposed because you're in larger groups of people.
Yeah, and you're going to the mall rather than going outside, and you're gonna be with people.
Yeah. And I do want to step back very quickly. There is a little bit of accuracy to the whole dry mouth and dry nose thing. One of the reasons why you do get sick more in the winter is because the cold air does dry your nose out, and it makes it easier for. One of the reasons we have mucus in our nose is because it helps block, debris and pathogens from getting into our respiratory system. So if you don't have that, it's easier to get infected. But just spraying it down with water is not the same as mucus.
Yeah, you're doing some saline, nose spray. It'll moisten it, but that's not.
In fact, you're likely to get rid of the mucus that you have, which is bad. Mm-hmm. And the vitamin C thing, yes, vitamin C does help a little bit with the immune system, but newer studies are suggesting zinc is actually good for the immune system properties. However, I do not recommend going out and buying all these zinc supplements and overloading on zinc. It's a metal. You don't want to consume too much metal. And even if you are being like, I'm going to drink 30 glasses of orange juice a day, not only will you end up with diabetes by the time this is over because there's so much sugar, vitamin C is water soluble, which means after a certain point, you're going to start peeing it out.
Well, it's like most supplements is your body only takes what it needs. And so if you're short on something, I got this explained to me with like testosterone boosters because I was trying to get all swole and shit. And, if you're deficient, your body's going to take that supplement, use a little bit of it, use what it needs, what your body knows it needs, and then it's going to throw away the rest of it unless you just bombard it. And that's how people, you get orange skin when you eat too much. What is it? Something that turns it that way. Yeah. Right. And there's another one, like there's a metal like a zinc that it'll turn your skin blue because you just do too much of it and because of the way it reacts. And so if you overload your body, it'll do that. But most of it will just be pissed out because your body's only going to use so much of it.
Yeah, now, some of it does get stored in fat cells, which is a problem, right? Vitamins A, D, E, and K, those are fat-soluble vitamins, which means they get passed through cell membranes and they get stored in the cell. And if you have too much of it, your body's going to take what it can get. And it will store them until the point where it becomes toxic to the cells. So we get this cytotoxic effect of consuming too much vitamins or certain minerals and stuff. So you do want to take some caution. Granted, we said this at the beginning, and I'll say it again. I am not a medical doctor, so the fuck do I know, right? But, this is what research and medical literature suggests, and I can spit that back out at people.
Well, I mean, even when it comes down to doctors, and it's just like what they may know more, maybe, but the amount of effort that the same shit they can do is the same shit I can do. So if we know,
Not according to the government.
Yeah, because if we know the same thing relatively, that I can give you the same shit that they're gonna give you, because. And I got mine at fucking CVS down the road. The doctors right now with this specific thing, doctors are very useful. And I go to the doctor for many, many things. I have pains and aches, and I get seen because I don't know what to do. But with this, with the flu and certain things, they're just going to give you things to treat the symptoms. And they're just going to throw medications at you to help you because all you need is time. And it's just they're going to tell you the same shit we're telling you. So yes, we're not medical doctors, but at this point, we're the best you can probably fucking afford. So,
Listen,
and especially to the Army guys, they're just getting quarantined on post. So
your doctor is getting their information from the same places we are: World Health Organization, CDC, and news outlets. Yep. That's what it is. That's all the information there is.
I work in a hospital. I don't know how many times I have my own physicians, and granted, I work in the GI clinic, but I have my own physicians and other physicians that I work with just coming up to me like, hey, so what's the new thing on this? Like, I'm the one to disseminate information. It gets sent to me from the top down to the hospital, who get it from the WHO, and then I email it out to my doctors and my clinicians. So yeah, I'm getting the same shit they are. They might have a little bit more background education, but it's the same info.
Yeah, the point is, if you feel like you are experiencing symptoms, call your local doctor, call your local hospital, find out what the procedures are, what the protocol is, and follow it. Don't be like that asshole in Boston who broke quarantine to go to a business event. Like, you're being a dick, and you're putting who knows how many numbers of people at risk for zero reason.
Yeah, and don't just be an asshole like that. Don't just be a dick. Like, cough in public spaces just to freak people out. Because and I haven't heard of anything of it yet, but knowing people, I can imagine them just standing next to someone, like purposely coughing on them. If I'm standing next to you, let's say in a line, and I have my newborn with me, and you purposely turn and cough in our direction, I'm beating you. I'm beating you in whatever bread aisle we happen to be in because you deserve it.
Roadhouse.